Dr. Kate Morrison rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. It was 3 in the morning, and she was alone in the radio telescope control room. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she couldn't leave. Something strange was happening in space, and she needed to figure out what it was. Kate worked at the new radio telescope facility in Puerto Rico. Her job was to listen for signals from space. Most nights were quiet, with only the usual noise from distant stars and planets. But tonight was different. Her equipment had picked up something that didn't belong. The signal was strong and clear, but it wasn't meant for Earth. Kate could tell because it was moving past their solar system, heading somewhere else. She had been tracking it for 2 hours, trying to understand what it was saying. Jake Phillips walked into the control room with 2 cups of fresh coffee. He was a lieutenant commander in the Space Force and worked with Kate's team to study space communications. Jake was tall and serious, but he always brought coffee when Kate was working late. "Still looking at that weird signal?" Jake asked, setting a cup next to her keyboard. "It's not weird," Kate said, taking a sip of the hot coffee. "It's incredible. Someone is talking out there, and they're in trouble." Jake pulled up a chair next to her. "What makes you think they're in trouble?" Kate pointed at the computer screen, where lines and numbers showed the signal's pattern. "Look at this. The signal repeats every 30 seconds. It's using a distress pattern that works across different languages and species." "Species?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "You think this is from aliens?" "I know it sounds crazy, but yes. The mathematical structure is too complex for any Earth technology. And Jake, I think I'm starting to understand what they're saying." Kate had been working on the signal's code for hours. She used every trick she knew about mathematics and communication. Slowly, patterns began to make sense. Numbers turned into words. Words turned into sentences. And sentences turned into a desperate cry for help. "They call themselves the Zilani," Kate explained, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "They live on a water world called Aquatilis. Someone called the Vorthak Empire is attacking them." Jake leaned closer to the screen. "How can you be sure?" "Because they're asking for help from something called the Galactic Confederation. They're sending their location, their population size, and how much time they have left." Kate's voice became quiet. "Jake, they only have 3 weeks before the enemy arrives." The two worked together for the next hour, pulling more information from the signal. Kate's translation program got better as it learned the alien language. Soon, they could read whole sentences. The Zilani were peaceful people who lived in underwater cities. They had never hurt anyone and spent their time studying ocean life and growing food in their seas. But the Vorthak Empire was coming to take their world and make them slaves. "This is like reading someone's last letter," Kate said sadly. "They're so scared, but they're trying to be brave. Listen to this part." She played a section of the translated message. The alien voice sounded scared but determined. It spoke of children hiding in the deep ocean cities and parents who would fight to protect them. It talked about their beautiful world and how they didn't want to see it destroyed. "They're sending this message to their allies," Jake said, studying the data. "But where are these allies?" Kate checked her calculations. The signal is heading toward a star system about 400 light-years away. Even if their message travels at light speed, it will take 400 years to get there. "But the attack happens in 3 weeks, Jake said, understanding the problem. "Exactly. By the time help arrives, there won't be anyone left to save." They sat in silence for a moment, thinking about the terrible situation. Somewhere in space, an entire species was about to be destroyed, and their cry for help would arrive centuries too late. "Wait," Jake said suddenly. "What if the help doesn't come from their allies?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if someone else answered their call? Someone closer?" Kate looked at him with confusion, then understanding slowly filled her face. "You're talking about us. You're talking about Earth. Why not? We intercepted their message. We understand what they're saying. We know they need help. Jake, we're not part of any galactic confederation. We don't even have real spaceships that can travel between stars. But we have something, Jake argued. We have 6 deep space vessels that could make the trip. The military has been testing them for 2 years. Kate knew about the ships. They were Earth's first attempt at interstellar travel, designed to explore nearby star systems. They were small and experimental, nothing like the massive warships that would be needed to fight an empire. Even if we could get there in time, what could we do? 6 small ships against an entire empire? Jake was quiet for a moment, then he spoke with determination. I don't know. But I know we can't just sit here and let innocent people die when we could try to help them. Kate looked at the alien message on her screen. The Zilani were still broadcasting, still hoping someone would hear them and come to help. They didn't know that their message had been intercepted by a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. We need to tell someone about this, Kate said finally. Who? Everyone. The president, the military, the United Nations. Someone needs to make a decision. Jake nodded. I'll call Admiral Hayes. She's in charge of the deep space program. If anyone will listen, it's her. As Jake made his phone calls, Kate continued to listen to the Zilani message. She learned more about their world and their people. They sounded kind and peaceful, nothing like the violent empire that was coming to destroy them. Kate thought about her own planet. Earth had its problems, but people here could still look up at the stars and dream of a better future. The Zilani wouldn't have that chance if no one helped them. She made a decision. No matter what the politicians and military leaders decided, she would keep listening to the Zilani signal. She would learn everything she could about these people and their world. If Earth was going to help them, they would need all the information they could get. And if Earth decided not to help, at least someone would remember the Zilani and their desperate call for aid that came too late to save them. Admiral Lisa Hayes walked quickly through the halls of the Pentagon. It was 6 in the morning, and she had been awake all night after Jake Phillips called her about the alien signal. She carried a tablet with all the information Kate Morrison had gathered about the Zilani and their desperate situation. The meeting room was already full when she arrived. President Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table, looking tired but alert. Defense Secretary Paul Grant was there, along with the heads of all military branches and several scientists from NASA and the Space Force. Admiral Hayes, the president said, Commander Phillips tells me we've received a distress call from outer space. Please explain. Lisa stood and activated the wall screen. Kate's translated message appeared, along with star charts showing the location of the Zilani homeworld. Mr. President, 12 hours ago, Dr. Morrison intercepted a communication from an alien species called the Zilani. They're asking for help. The room was silent as Lisa explained what they had learned. She showed them images that Kate had decoded from the signal, pictures of beautiful underwater cities and the peaceful people who lived there. Then she showed them what was coming. The Vortak Empire has a fleet heading toward the Zilani homeworld. Based on the signal data, we estimate they have about 50 warships. The attack will begin in 21 days. Defense Secretary Grant leaned forward. Admiral, what do we know about this Vortak Empire? Not much, sir. But what we do know is troubling. Lisa changed the display to show fragments of data they had pulled from the Zilani transmission. The Zilani mentioned 12 other worlds that have been conquered. The Vortak appear to be a militaristic species that takes slaves and destroys anyone who resists. General Robert Stone from the Air Force spoke up. What about the Galactic Confederation that the aliens are calling for help? The Zilani's message is traveling toward a star system 400 light-years away. Even if their allies receive the message and respond immediately, help won't arrive for centuries. President Webb studied the information on the screen. So these people are going to die, and no one will help them. That's correct, sir. Unless what, Admiral? Lisa took a deep breath. Unless we help them, Mr. President. The room erupted in surprised voices. Several people started talking at once, but the president raised his hand for silence. Admiral Hayes, are you seriously suggesting that we send Earth's military to fight in an alien war? I'm suggesting that we answer a call for help from innocent people who are about to be destroyed. Defense Secretary Grant shook his head. Lisa, we have 6 experimental deep space ships. 6. And you want to send them against an alien empire with 50 warships? Sometimes the size of your army matters less than the courage of your soldiers, Lisa replied. Dr. Elizabeth Carter from NASA joined the discussion. Even if we could reach their planet in time, we don't know anything about their technology or weapons. We could be flying into a slaughter. Dr. Carter is right, said General Stone. We don't even know if our weapons would work against alien ships. Admiral Hayes had expected these objections. I've been in contact with Dr. Morrison all night. She's still receiving data from the Zilani signal. They're sending technical information along with their distress call, hoping their allies will know how to help them. She changed the display to show new information. The Zilani have provided details about Vorthack ships and weapons. Their technology is advanced, but it's not magic. Our ships are faster and more maneuverable than what the Vorthack use. But they have 50 ships, Grant repeated. Yes, sir. But they're not expecting any resistance. The Zilani are peaceful people with no military. The Vorthack are planning for an easy conquest, not a real battle. President Webb looked around the table at his advisors. What are the arguments for helping these aliens? Lisa stepped forward. Mr. President, America was founded on the idea that all people have the right to freedom and safety. These principles don't end at our planet's atmosphere. Go on. If we do nothing, an entire species dies. Millions of innocent people become slaves or are killed. But if we act, we send a message to the galaxy that Earth stands for something. General Stone frowned. Admiral, we also risk starting a war with an alien empire. What happens if we attack their fleet and they decide to come after Earth? Then we face that problem when it comes. But General, if we let the Vorthack destroy the Zilani without any resistance, what message does that send? That they can take any world they want without consequences? The President was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Carter, how long would it take our ships to reach the Zilani homeworld? About 18 days at maximum speed, sir. We'd arrive just before the Vorthack fleet. And our crews? Are they ready for this kind of mission? Admiral Hayes nodded. Our deep space crews are the best we have, Mr. President. Captain Ryan Cross and his team have been training for interstellar missions for 2 years. Defense Secretary Grant tried one more time to change the President's mind. Sir, this is an enormous risk. We're talking about committing our entire deep space fleet to help people we've never met, against an enemy we don't understand. I understand the risks, Paul. But I also understand what's at stake. President Webb stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the early morning sky. Admiral Hayes, you said the Zilani are peaceful people? Yes, sir. They've never attacked anyone. They spend their time studying their oceans and taking care of their families. And the Vorthack Empire? From what we can tell, they're conquerors and slavers. They destroy civilizations for profit and power. The President turned back to face the room. Then the choice is clear. America has never stood by while innocent people were murdered, and we won't start now. Defense Secretary Grant looked worried. Sir, are you authorizing military action? I'm authorizing a rescue mission. Admiral Hayes, you have permission to take our deep space fleet to help the Zilani. But I want you to try diplomacy first. Maybe the Vorthack can be reasoned with. And if they can't be reasoned with? Lisa asked. President Webb's voice was firm. Then you do whatever is necessary to protect innocent lives. That's what America does. Admiral Hayes felt a mix of excitement and fear. In her 30 years of military service, she had never been given a mission like this. Thank you, Mr. President. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Admiral. And Lisa? Yes, sir. Make sure our people come home. All of them. As the meeting ended, Lisa Hayes was already thinking about what needed to be done. She had to prepare 6 ships and their crews for a journey to another star system. She had to plan for a battle against unknown enemies. and she had to do it all in less than 24 hours. But first, she needed to call Captain Ryan Cross and tell him that his next mission would either make him a hero or get him killed in a place so far from Earth that no one would ever find his body. Either way, Lisa knew they were doing the right thing. Sometimes being human meant taking risks to help others, even when those others lived among distant stars. Captain Ryan Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching his crew prepare for the most important mission in human history. Around him, 6 Earth ships hung in space like metal sharks ready to hunt. Each ship carried 50 crew members and enough supplies for a 6-month journey. Ryan had been commanding deep space missions for 3 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. In 2 hours, they would begin their journey to another star system to help aliens that most humans didn't even know existed. "Captain," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Maria Santos. "We're receiving another transmission from the Zolani homeworld." "Put it on the main screen." The bridge filled with the sound of the alien language, followed by Kate Morrison's computer translation. Dr. Morrison was aboard the Defender, along with Dr. Amy Foster, Earth's best expert on alien life. They had worked together for days to improve communication with the Zolani. "This is High Counselor Finn Wavecrest of the Zolani people," the translation said. "We have received your message, humans of Earth. We are amazed that unknown friends would travel so far to help us." Ryan stepped forward. "Dr. Morrison, can you send a reply?" Kate nodded and activated her communication system. "High Counselor Wavecrest, this is Captain Ryan Cross of the Earth vessel Defender. We are 18 hours away from your world. Can you provide us with information about the Vorthak fleet?" They waited several minutes for the signal to travel through space. When the reply came, it carried both hope and fear. "Captain Cross, I am Military Coordinator Luna Deepcurrent. We are grateful beyond words for your help, but we must warn you. The Vorthak have 47 warships. They are larger and more heavily armed than anything in our records." Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her computer. "Captain, I'm receiving technical data from the Zolani. They're sending us everything they know about Vorthak ships and weapons." Ryan studied the information as it appeared on his screen. The Vorthak ships were indeed larger than Earth's vessels, with powerful energy weapons and thick armor. But they were also slower and less maneuverable. "Dr. Foster, what's your analysis?" Amy had spent her career studying life in Earth's oceans, but the past week had taught her about life in space. "Captain, the Vorthak seem to rely on brute force. Their ships are built for overwhelming smaller opponents, not for fighting equals. And their crews? According to the Zolani data, most Vorthak warriors have cybernetic implants that make them stronger and faster. But these same implants might be a weakness." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "The implants operate on specific frequencies. If we could disrupt those frequencies, we might be able to confuse or even disable their warriors." Lieutenant Commander Jake Phillips, who had joined the mission as Ryan's tactical advisor, leaned over the data. "Dr. Foster, could our electromagnetic pulse weapons affect these implants?" "Possibly. But we'd need to modify the frequency output." Amy's fingers flew over her keyboard. "I'm sending the technical specifications to our engineering teams now." Captain Cross turned to his crew. "All right, people. We have 18 hours to prepare for something no human has ever done before. Engineering teams will work with Dr. Foster to modify our weapons. Communications will maintain contact with the Zolani. And I want all department heads to review everything we know about the Vorthak." As his crew scattered to their tasks, Ryan received another transmission from Aquatilis. This time, the voice belonged to someone new. "Captain Cross, this is Luna Deepcurrent again. I must ask you something that troubles me deeply. Why are your people willing to risk their lives for strangers?" Ryan thought about the question for a moment. How could he explain humanity's decision to someone who had never met a human? "Coordinator Deepcurrent, on Earth we have a saying, evil succeeds when good people do nothing. The Vorthak are evil. You are good people in trouble. We cannot do nothing." The response came back quickly, and Ryan could hear emotion in the alien voice even through the translation. "Your species honors us with such friendship. We will not forget this, whatever happens. Dr. Morrison looked up from her communications console. Captain, the Zilani are sending us detailed maps of their solar system. They want to help us plan our attack. Ryan studied the maps as they appeared. Aquatilis was a beautiful blue world covered mostly by water. 3 small moons orbited around it, and there was an asteroid belt nearby that could provide cover for ships. This could work to our advantage, Jake said, pointing at the asteroid belt. We could hide our ships there and launch surprise attacks. What about the Zilani themselves? Ryan asked. Can they fight? Dr. Foster looked up from the technical data she was reviewing. They're not warriors, Captain. But they're incredibly intelligent, and they know their own planet better than anyone. They could be valuable allies if we can coordinate with them. As the hours passed, Ryan's crew worked with desperate energy. Engineers modified weapons based on Dr. Foster's research. Pilots studied the Vorthack ship designs to find weaknesses. Medical teams prepared for casualties they hoped wouldn't come. But the most important work was happening in the communications center. Kate Morrison and her team were learning to speak with the Zilani in real time, building the trust and understanding that would be needed for the coming battle. Captain, Kate called out, I'm receiving a personal message from High Counselor Wavecrest. What does it say? Kate's voice was soft as she read the translation. He says that his children are asking about the humans who are coming to help them. They want to know what Earth looks like and whether human children like to swim. Ryan felt a tightness in his chest. This wasn't just about military strategy or interstellar politics. Real families were depending on them. Real children were in danger. Send a reply, Ryan said. Tell the High Counselor that Earth children love to swim, and that we're coming to make sure Zilani children can keep swimming in their beautiful oceans. As the Defender and its escort ships continued their journey toward Aquatilis, Ryan stood at the bridge window and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien species was preparing to destroy a peaceful world. But humanity was coming, and humans had never been good at letting bullies win. Captain, Lieutenant Santos reported, all ships report ready for battle. Good. And Lieutenant? Yes, sir. Send a message to the Vorthack fleet. Tell them that the planet Aquatilis is under the protection of Earth. If they want it, they'll have to go through us. Ryan smiled grimly. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn something new about humans. When innocent people called for help, humans answered. And when humans answered, they came ready to fight. War Commander Krex Ironscale stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, and looked at the blue world ahead. Aquatilis hung in space like a perfect jewel, its ocean sparkling in the light of its yellow sun. Soon, those waters would belong to the Vorthack Empire. War Commander, his tactical officer reported, we are detecting ships in orbit around the planet. Krex's cybernetic eye focused on the display screen. 6 small vessels moved in formation around Aquatilis. They were unlike any ship design in the Vorthack military database. What are those? Krex demanded. Unknown, sir. They appear to be protecting the planet. Krex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. The Zilani have no military. These must be their pathetic rescue ships trying to evacuate civilians. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled, and a voice spoke in clear galactic standard. Vorthack Fleet, this is Captain Ryan Cross of the Earth Vessel Defender. The planet Aquatilis is under our protection. Turn around and leave this system immediately. Krex stared at the screen in amazement. Earth? I've never heard of this species. He activated his communications system. Unknown Captain, you are interfering with a legal conquest by the Vorthack Empire. Surrender now, and we will allow you to leave. The response came quickly. War Commander, we don't recognize the Vorthack Empire's right to conquer peaceful worlds. This is your final warning. Leave now, or face the consequences. Krex's officers looked at each other in disbelief. A fleet of 6 small ships was challenging 47 Vorthack warships. It was either incredible courage or incredible stupidity. Sir, the tactical officer said, should we destroy them? Krex considered the question. The unknown ships were tiny compared to his fleet. It would be easy to blast them out of space. But something about their confidence worried him. Scan their ships, he ordered. I want to know what weapons they carry. As his crew worked, Krex opened a communication channel to his subcommanders. All ships, prepare for battle. But be careful. These aliens may have weapons we don't understand. On the Defender, Captain Cross watched the Vortak fleet spread into attack formation. The alien ships were massive, each one 3 times larger than his vessel. But size wasn't everything in space combat. All ships, this is Cross. Execute Plan Alpha. Remember, speed and surprise are our advantages. The 6 Earth ships suddenly scattered in different directions. The Defender and her sister ship, the Guardian, dove toward the planet's surface. The Ranger and the Explorer headed for the asteroid belt. The Hawk and the Falcon moved to flank the Vortak formation. What are they doing? Krex demanded as he watched the enemy ships move in impossible directions. Sir, their ships are much faster than ours. They're using hit-and-run tactics. Before Krex could respond, the first attack began. The Hawk and Falcon appeared from behind an asteroid, their modified electromagnetic pulse weapons firing at the nearest Vortak ship. The alien vessel's shields flickered and died as the pulse disrupted its power systems. Impossible! Krex shouted. How did they penetrate our shields? But there was no time to figure it out. The 2 Earth ships were already gone, darting away before the Vortak could return fire. Seconds later, the Ranger and Explorer attacked from the opposite side, disabling another enemy vessel. Dr. Amy Foster watched the battle from the Defender's science station. Her modifications to the human weapons were working perfectly. The electromagnetic pulses were disrupting the Vortak ship's power systems and confusing their cybernetic warriors. Captain, she reported, the pulse weapons are affecting their crews as well as their ships. I'm detecting massive electronic interference on the disabled vessels. Good work, Doctor. All ships, continue the attack pattern. Hit hard and disappear. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Earth ships moved like dancers, appearing long enough to strike and then vanishing into the asteroid field or behind Aquatilus's moons. The Vortak fleet, designed for overwhelming stationary targets, couldn't keep up with their enemy's speed. Sir, the Vortak tactical officer reported, we've lost 8 ships. The enemy is too fast for our weapons to track. Krex's cybernetic implants sparked with anger. Then we use different tactics. All ships, target the planet itself. If we can't catch these pests, we'll force them to come to us. War Commander, that will destroy millions of civilians. I don't care. Fire on the planet. As the Vortak fleet turned its massive guns toward Aquatilus, something unexpected happened. The ocean world's defenses came alive. High Counselor Finn Wavecrest had been watching the battle from his underwater command center. When he saw the Vortak ships targeting his world, he activated weapons that had been sleeping in the deep ocean for centuries. All defense platforms, this is the High Counselor. Protect our new allies. From the depths of Aquatilus's oceans came beams of pure energy. The Zilani had built these weapons long ago, hoping never to use them. The energy beams struck several Vortak ships, punching through their hulls like spears through paper. The planet is armed, a Vortak officer screamed. They've been hiding weapons. Captain Cross watched with amazement as the peaceful Zilani joined the battle. All ships, coordinate with the planetary defenses. Let's show the Vortak what happens when good people fight together. The tide of battle turned completely. The Earth ships used their speed to drive Vortak vessels into range of the Zilani weapons. The underwater energy beams struck with perfect accuracy, guided by Zilani minds that knew every current and movement in their oceans. But the most shocking moment came when Dr. Foster activated her special frequency weapon. As the electromagnetic pulse washed over a group of Vortak ships, something incredible happened. Captain, she called out excitedly. The pulse is affecting the slave soldiers on their ships. I'm detecting rebellion on 3 Vorthak vessels. On the Vorthak ships, cybernetic slaves from conquered worlds suddenly found their control implants failing. For the first time in years, they could think freely. And their first free thought was revenge against their oppressors. The Vorthak crews found themselves fighting battles on their own ships as freed slaves turned against their masters. Chaos spread through the fleet as more slaves broke free from their electronic chains. War Commander Krex watched his mighty fleet falling apart. Ships were being destroyed by tiny Earth vessels. His own warriors were being defeated by freed slaves. And the planet he had come to conquer was fighting back with weapons more powerful than anything in his arsenal. All ships, retreat, he commanded. We withdraw to regroup. But Captain Cross had no intention of letting the Vorthak escape to attack someone else. All ships, pursue the enemy. We end this here and now. The Earth fleet chased the fleeing Vorthak ships through the asteroid belt. One by one, the remaining enemy vessels were disabled or destroyed. Some Vorthak crews surrendered, while others fought to the end. When the battle was over, only 12 Vorthak ships had escaped. The rest were either destroyed or captured, their slave crews finally free after years of captivity. Captain Cross opened a communication channel to Aquatilis. High Counselor Wavecrest, this is Captain Cross. The Vorthak fleet has been defeated. The response came immediately, filled with joy and gratitude. Captain Cross, our people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have saved our world and our children. Ryan looked out at the beautiful blue planet and the debris of the enemy fleet floating in space. Humanity had fought its first battle among the stars, and they had won. But more importantly, they had proven that good could triumph over evil, even in the vast darkness of space. High Counselor, Ryan replied, we were honored to fight beside you. Evil doesn't win when good people stand together. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner gripped the controls of her fighter as she led 12 Earth pilots toward the massive Vorthak flagship. The Dominator was the largest ship she had ever seen, bristling with weapons and thick armor that had protected it through dozens of conquests. Eagle Squadron, this is Eagle Leader, Beth spoke into her radio. Remember the plan. We hit their command center while the main fleet keeps them busy. Behind her, the other pilots checked their weapons one final time. They were flying the newest Earth fighters, small ships that were fast and hard to hit. But they had never been tested against alien technology. Eagle Leader, this is Eagle 2, called Lieutenant Steve Parker. Sensors show heavy defensive fire around the target. This is going to be rough. Beth looked ahead at the Dominator. Energy beams lanced out from its weapons, trying to hit Captain Cross's ships as they darted around the massive vessel. The plan was simple but dangerous. While the larger Earth ships kept the Vorthak busy, Beth's fighters would slip through their defenses and attack the bridge. Eagle Squadron, begin attack run. Stay low and fast. The 12 fighters dove toward the Dominator like angry wasps. Immediately, the ship's defensive weapons turned toward them. Energy beams flashed past Beth's fighter, close enough to make her instruments spark. Eagle 3 is hit, someone called over the radio. Beth saw Lieutenant Karen Hughes's fighter spinning out of control, smoke pouring from its engine. Eagle 3, eject. We'll pick you up later. Negative, Eagle Leader. My ship's still flying. I'm staying with you. Beth smiled grimly. That was the kind of courage that made her proud to be human. All fighters, follow me in. Target the tower on top of the ship. The Dominator's bridge rose from the main hull like a metal mountain. Beth could see windows along its sides where the Vorthak commanders would be watching the battle. If they could destroy the bridge, the entire ship would be helpless. As the fighters closed in, Beth noticed something strange. The defensive fire was becoming less accurate, and some of the weapons had stopped firing completely. Eagle Leader, this is Defender, Captain Cross's voice came over the radio. Dr. Foster's electromagnetic pulse is working. Half the ship's systems are down. Understood, Defender. Beginning final attack run. Beth's fighter screamed toward the bridge tower, her weapons locked onto the command center. At the last second, she saw movement in the windows. Vorthak warriors were pointing at her fighter, their cybernetic eyes glowing red with anger. "See you later, ugly," Beth muttered, and pressed the firing button. Her missiles struck the bridge directly, sending metal and glass flying into space. The explosion was so bright that her fighter's screens automatically dimmed to protect her eyes. "Direct hit," Steve Parker called out. "The bridge is gone." But as Beth pulled her fighter away from the dying ship, she saw something that made her heart stop. War Commander Krex was still alive, floating in space inside an emergency suit. And he was pointing a weapon at her fighter. The energy beam struck her ship's wing, sending Beth spinning toward the Dominator's hull. She fought with the controls, trying to regain stability, but her fighter was too damaged. "Eagle Leader is going down," she called into her radio. "I'm going to crash into their ship." "Beth, eject," Captain Cross ordered. "That's a direct order." "Negative, sir. If I eject now, I'll just float in space until they capture me. I'm taking this ship down fighting." Beth aimed her crippled fighter at what looked like the Dominator's engine room. If she was going to die, she would make sure the Vorthak flagship couldn't hurt anyone else. But before she could complete her suicide run, something unexpected happened. The side of the Vorthak ship exploded outward, and figures in strange armor came flying out. "What the hell?" Beth gasped. Her radio crackled with a new voice, speaking broken English with an alien accent. "Human pilot, this is Sergeant Vrak of the Freed Krillian Warriors. We have taken the engine room. You can land safely now." Beth stared in amazement as more explosions rocked the Dominator. Throughout the ship, the slave soldiers that Dr. Foster's weapons had freed were fighting their former masters. The massive Vorthak warship was tearing itself apart from the inside. She managed to land her damaged fighter in the hole the freed slaves had blown in the ship's hull. As she climbed out, she found herself face to face with the strangest sight of her life. The freed slaves were from dozens of different species. Some looked like lizards walking on two legs. Others were covered in fur or had too many arms. But they all had one thing in common: they were fighting mad. "Human," said the one who had called himself Vrak, "your weapons freed our minds from Vorthak control. We are in your debt." Beth looked around at the chaos inside the ship. Former slaves were hunting down their Vorthak captors with weapons they had taken from the armory. The sounds of battle echoed through the corridors. "How many of you are there?" Beth asked. "On this ship? Maybe 200. But there are thousands more on other ships." Vrak's lizard-like face showed something that might have been a smile. "The Vorthak Empire is built on slave labor. When you free the slaves, the Empire falls apart." Beth activated her radio. "Captain Cross, this is Turner. The slaves on the Vorthak ships are fighting back. Dr. Foster's weapon didn't just disable their electronics, it started a revolution." "Understood, Colonel. Can you help coordinate with them?" Beth looked at Vrak and the other freed beings around her. They were scared and angry, but they were also determined to be free. "Yes, sir. I think I can do that." For the next hour, Beth worked with the freed slaves to capture the Dominator. It wasn't easy. The Vorthak warriors were tough and well-armed. But they were also confused and leaderless after the destruction of their bridge. The fighting was brutal and close. Beth found herself crawling through air vents with a six-armed alien who used to be a mechanic before the Vorthak enslaved his world. Together, they ambushed Vorthak patrols and freed more slaves from their holding cells. "Human Beth," Vrak said as they rested between battles, "why did your people come here? The Zalani are not your species." Beth thought about the question. How could she explain humanity's decision to help strangers? "On Earth, we have a rule. If someone needs help and you can provide it, you help them. It doesn't matter if they're your family or your species or even your friend. This is a strange rule." "What do you gain from helping?" "We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. Sometimes that's enough." Vrak made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species is very strange, Human Beth. But I think I like being strange." As the battle for the Dominator continued, similar fights were happening on Vorthak ships throughout the fleet. Dr. Foster's electromagnetic weapon had freed slaves on every enemy vessel, and they were all fighting for their freedom. Captain Cross watched from the Defender's bridge as the Vorthak fleet fell apart. Ships that had been attacking his forces minutes ago were now fighting civil wars as freed slaves battled their former masters. "Captain," Dr. Foster reported, "I'm counting at least 1,500 freed beings across the enemy fleet. They're from 27 different species." "My God," Ryan whispered. "The Vorthak weren't just conquerors. They were slavers on a massive scale." "Sir," Lieutenant Santos called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from 12 Vorthak ships. The rest are either destroyed or captured by their former slaves." Ryan opened a communication channel to all ships. "This is Captain Cross to all Vorthak vessels. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that continues to fight will be destroyed." One by one, the remaining Vorthak ships lowered their weapons and sent surrender signals. The great fleet that had come to conquer Aquatilis was finished, defeated not just by human tactics but by the desire for freedom that lived in the heart of every thinking being. Beth Turner finally made it to the Dominator's main hangar, where hundreds of freed slaves were celebrating their liberation. They cheered when they saw her, calling her name in dozens of different languages. "Human Beth!" Vrak called out. "The ship is ours. What do we do now?" Beth looked around at all the different species, all the people who had been slaves just hours ago and were now free. "Now you decide your own future. You're free to go home or to stay and help others find freedom. It's your choice." As she said the words, Beth realized that this was what the battle had really been about. Not just saving the Zilani, but proving that freedom was stronger than slavery, that hope was stronger than fear, and that sometimes the smallest act of courage could change everything. War Commander Krek's iron scale floated in his escape pod, watching his mighty fleet burn in the space around Aquatilis. Of the 47 ships he had brought to conquer this world, only 12 were still under Vorthak control. The rest were either destroyed or captured by their own slaves. "This is impossible," he growled into his communication device. "Retreat. All remaining ships, retreat to the edge of the system." The surviving Vorthak vessels limped away from the battle, their hulls scarred and their crews demoralized. Behind them, the small Earth fleet gave chase, determined not to let them escape. Captain Ryan Cross stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching the enemy ships flee. "All ships, pursue the Vorthak fleet. We can't let them regroup and attack another world." Admiral Lisa Hayes had arrived just hours earlier with reinforcements, 3 more Earth ships and a hospital vessel to care for the wounded. Now she stood beside Ryan, coordinating the pursuit. "Captain," she said, "our intelligence suggests that these Vorthak ships carry information about other worlds they're planning to attack. We need to capture as many as possible." "Understood, Admiral. All ships, target their engines. Disable them but don't destroy them unless necessary." The chase continued for 6 hours as the Earth fleet hunted down the fleeing Vorthak ships. The aliens were fast, but not as fast as the human vessels. One by one, the enemy ships were caught and disabled. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner, now aboard the captured Dominator with her alien allies, coordinated the boarding actions. The freed slaves knew every detail of Vorthak ship design, making it easy to disable their systems and capture their crews. "Captain Cross," Beth reported over the radio, "we've captured 8 more ships. The slaves aboard these vessels are providing incredible intelligence about Vorthak operations." Dr. Amy Foster was aboard one of the captured ships, working with the freed beings to understand the scope of the Vorthak Empire's crimes. What she found horrified her. "Admiral Hayes," she called over the communication system, "you need to see this. The Vorthak have detailed records of their conquests. They've enslaved populations from 43 different worlds." Admiral Hayes felt sick as she looked at the data. Millions of beings from dozens of species had been torn from their homes and forced to work for the Vorthak Empire. Families had been separated, cultures destroyed, entire civilizations wiped out. "Dr. Foster, what about the worlds they haven't conquered yet?" "There's a list, Admiral. 17 more worlds marked for conquest in the next 5 years. The Vorthak were planning to double the size of their empire." Ryan Cross joined the conversation. Not anymore. We're going to make sure these people get home, and we're going to warn the other worlds on that list. The last Vortex ship was captured near the edge of the solar system. War Commander Krex had tried to destroy his own vessel rather than let it fall into enemy hands, but the freed slaves aboard his ship had stopped him. When Ryan beamed aboard the captured command ship, he found Krex in chains, surrounded by beings from a dozen different species. The War Commander looked smaller now, without his mighty fleet and his army of slaves. "You have destroyed the Vortex Empire," Krex snarled at Ryan. "Our government will send 10 fleets to avenge this defeat." Ryan looked at the alien warrior with disgust. "Your government built its power on slavery and murder. If they want to fight us, they're welcome to try." One of the freed slaves, a being that looked like a walking tree, stepped forward. "Captain Cross, this creature is Krex Ironscale. He personally destroyed my homeworld and enslaved my people. What will you do with him?" Ryan considered the question carefully. On Earth, war criminals face trial and punishment. But this was a galactic war, with no international court to handle the prosecution. "That's not for me to decide alone," Ryan said finally. "He'll face trial for his crimes, but the victims should have a voice in determining his fate." Over the next few days, the Earth fleet worked with the freed slaves to process the captured Vortex ships. The aliens had detailed records of their crimes, making it easy to identify which beings had been taken from which worlds. High Counselor Finn Wavecrest of the Zilani offered his world as a temporary home for the freed slaves while transport could be arranged to their original planets. The underwater cities of Aquatilis became refugee centers, filled with beings learning to be free again. Dr. Kate Morrison, who had started everything by intercepting the original distress call, found herself serving as a translator between dozens of different species. Each group had its own language and customs, but they all shared the joy of freedom. "Captain Cross," she said one evening as they watched the sunset over Aquatilis' oceans, "when I detected that first signal, I never imagined it would lead to this." Ryan nodded, looking out at the alien ships floating peacefully in orbit. "Sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it." Admiral Hayes was coordinating with Earth Command to arrange transport for the freed beings. Some wanted to return to their homeworlds immediately. Others, whose planets had been destroyed, asked to stay and help fight the Vortex Empire. "Admiral," Beth Turner reported, "I've been talking with the freed warriors. Many of them want to join our fleet and help rescue other slaves." Lisa considered the request. The former slaves knew Vortex tactics and technology better than anyone. They could be valuable allies in future missions. "What do you think, Beth? Can we trust them?" "Admiral, these people have suffered under Vortex rule for years. They hate slavery more than anyone. If we're serious about stopping the Vortex Empire, we need their help." The decision was made to form a joint fleet. Earth ships would work alongside vessels crewed by freed slaves to hunt down Vortex slavers throughout the galaxy. It would be dangerous work, but someone had to do it. As news of the battle spread through space, something unexpected happened. The story of how humans had answered an alien distress call inspired other species to take action against the Vortex Empire. 3 worlds that had been paying tribute to avoid conquest suddenly stopped their payments and armed themselves for war. A species called the Andromedans, who had been neutral in galactic conflicts, offered their advanced weapons to anyone fighting the Vortex. "Captain," Lieutenant Maria Santos reported, "we're receiving messages from all over the galaxy. Everyone wants to know about the humans who defeated the Vortex fleet." Ryan smiled as he read the messages. Some were offers of alliance. Others were requests for help. A few were challenges from Vortex supporters who refused to believe that their empire could be defeated. "Send a reply to all of them," Ryan ordered. "Tell them that Earth stands ready to help any world that wants to be free. But also tell them that freedom isn't something you can give to someone, it's something you have to be willing to fight for." Dr. Foster was analyzing the Vortex technology when she made an important discovery. "Captain, I found something in their computer systems. The location of their main slave processing center." Ryan looked at the data with growing anger. The facility held over 50,000 beings from hundreds of different worlds, all waiting to be sold to Vortex mining operations and military units. How far away is it? 2 weeks at maximum speed. But Captain, the facility is heavily defended. We'd be attacking the heart of the Vortax slave trade. Ryan looked around at his crew, then at the freed aliens who had become their allies. He thought about the 50,000 beings suffering in Vortax prison camps, waiting for freedom that might never come. Dr. Foster, send the coordinates to Admiral Hayes. We're going to need every ship we can get. As the joint human-alien fleet prepared for its next mission, Ryan stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vortax Empire was planning its revenge. But they would find that Earth and its new allies were ready for them. The message that had started everything hadn't been meant for Earth. But humans had answered it anyway, and in doing so, they had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Now it was time to finish what they had started and make sure that no world would ever again suffer under Vortax rule. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stepped out of her transport ship and looked up at the most incredible building she had ever seen. The Galactic Confederation headquarters stretched into the sky like a crystal mountain, its surface reflecting the light of 3 different suns. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved around it like insects around a flower. Ambassador, said her aide, Lieutenant Commander Danny Walsh, are you ready for this? Elena took a deep breath. 3 months ago, she had been Earth's ambassador to the United Nations. Now she was about to represent humanity to an entire galaxy. As ready as anyone can be for something this impossible, she replied. The news of humanity's intervention at Aquatilis had spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every species in the Confederation was talking about the unknown aliens who had answered a distress call that wasn't meant for them. Elena's mission was simple in theory but complex in practice: convince the Galactic Confederation to accept Earth as a member and ally. The problem was that humanity had violated every rule of galactic diplomacy by intervening in someone else's war without permission. As they walked through the halls of the Confederation building, Elena saw aliens of every shape and size imaginable. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange she couldn't figure out which end was their head. Ambassador Rodriguez, a translator device announced, "You are expected in Council Chamber 7. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that rose toward a domed ceiling. Representatives from 300 worlds sat in those seats, all of them staring at Elena as she walked to the speaker's podium. At the center of the chamber sat High Chancellor Zara Mindweaver, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms. She had ruled the Confederation for 20 years and was known for her strict interpretation of galactic law. Ambassador Rodriguez of Earth, the Chancellor said, her voice amplified through the chamber, you stand before this council to answer for your species' actions at Aquatilis. How do you plead to the charge of unauthorized military intervention? Elena had prepared for this moment. High Chancellor, honored representatives, humanity pleads not guilty to any wrongdoing. We answered a call for help from innocent people who were about to be destroyed. A ripple of noise went through the chamber. Some representatives seemed angry, while others appeared curious. Ambassador, said Chancellor Mindweaver, the Zolani distress call was directed to their allies in the 7th sector. Your species had no legal right to respond to that communication. High Chancellor, when someone is drowning, you don't ask for legal permission before throwing them a rope. You help them because it's the right thing to do. Representative Call Stormclaw of the Andromedan Federation stood up. Ambassador Rodriguez, your species destroyed an entire Vortax fleet. Do you understand the consequences of such an action? Elena looked directly at the reptilian alien. Representative Stormclaw, we understand that the Vortax Empire was built on slavery and murder. We understand that they were coming to destroy the Zolani people. We also understand that sometimes good people must fight evil, even when it's inconvenient. But the legal implications, another representative began. Elena interrupted, something that was probably against protocol. With respect, Representative, the legal implications don't matter to the 50,000 slaves we freed from Vortax ships. They don't matter to the children on Aquatilis who are still alive because we acted. High Counselor Finn Wavecrest of the Zolani stood up in the gallery. He had come to the Confederation to speak on humanity's behalf. High Chancellor, he said, his translated voice carrying emotion, may I address the Council? You may speak, High Counselor Wavecrest. Finn walked to another podium, his movements graceful despite his alien form. Honored representatives, when the Vorthak fleet approached my world, we sent a distress call to our allies. We knew it would take centuries for that call to reach them. We expected to die. The chamber was completely silent now. But someone heard us. Someone we had never met, from a world we had never heard of, decided that our lives mattered. They traveled across the galaxy to stand between us and certain death. Finn turned to look at Elena. The humans could have ignored our call. They could have decided it wasn't their problem. Instead, they risked everything to save strangers. Representative Vel Brightstar of the Tau Ceti Alliance stood up. High Counselor Wavecrest, what you describe is admirable. But the humans also destabilized an entire sector of space. The Vorthak Empire is now in chaos. Yes, Finn replied, and thousands of enslaved beings are now free because of that chaos. 17 worlds that were marked for conquest are now safe. The Vorthak Empire's reign of terror has ended. Elena felt a surge of hope as she listened to Finn's words. But she knew the real test was yet to come. High Chancellor, Elena said, I request permission to present additional testimony. Permission granted. Elena activated a hologram projector. Images filled the chamber, pictures of the freed slaves, the destroyed Vorthak ships, and the worlds that had been saved from conquest. Honored representatives, Elena began, my species has learned something about the galaxy. We've learned that there are people who build and people who destroy. People who enslave and people who free. People who stand by and watch evil happen, and people who fight against it. She changed the image to show Earth. Humanity chooses to fight. We choose to help. We choose to stand with the innocent, even when it's dangerous or inconvenient or against the rules. Representative Thane Goldwhisper of the Crystal World spoke up. Ambassador, what makes you think humanity has the right to make these choices for the galaxy? Elena had expected this question. Representative Goldwhisper, we don't make choices for the galaxy. We make choices for ourselves. And we choose to help when help is needed. She changed the image again, this time showing the freed slaves working alongside human crews. These beings didn't ask us to free them. They didn't even know we existed. But when we saw them suffering, we couldn't ignore it. But the diplomatic consequences, another representative started. The diplomatic consequences, Elena said firmly, are that the galaxy now knows there is at least one species that will answer when innocent people call for help. The Vorthak Empire is gone. The slave trade has been disrupted. Worlds that lived in fear are now safe. Chancellor Mindweaver had been silent during the exchanges, but now she spoke. Ambassador Rodriguez, what does humanity want from this confederation? Elena took a breath. This was the moment everything depended on. High Chancellor, humanity wants to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to work with other species to build a galaxy where freedom and justice aren't just dreams. And if the Confederation rejects your membership, then we'll continue to do what we think is right, with or without official approval. We didn't need permission to help the Zilani, and we won't need permission to help others. The chamber erupted in noise as representatives argued among themselves. Some were angry at humanity's defiance of galactic law. Others seemed impressed by their courage. Chancellor Mindweaver called for order. The council will recess to consider testimony. Ambassador Rodriguez, you will have our decision tomorrow. As Elena left the chamber, she was approached by High Counselor Wavecrest and a being she didn't recognize, a tall, tree-like creature with bark for skin. Ambassador, Finn said, I want you to meet Elder Rootsinger of the Botanical Collective. His people were among those freed from the Vorthak ships. The tree being spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Ambassador Rodriguez, my species was enslaved for 40 years. We had given up hope of ever seeing our homeworld again. Your people gave us back our lives. Elena felt tears in her eyes. Elder Rootsinger, we just did what anyone should do. No, he replied, you did what humans do. And the galaxy is better because of it. As Elena walked back to her quarters, she thought about the decision the Confederation would make. Some species would never forgive humanity for breaking their rules. But others understood that sometimes rules had to be broken to save lives. She looked out the window at the stars, thinking about Captain Cross and his crew, who were somewhere out there hunting down Vortac slavers. They hadn't waited for permission to do the right thing, and Elena wouldn't either. Tomorrow, the galaxy would decide whether humanity belonged in their confederation. But Elena already knew the truth: humanity belonged wherever people needed help, whether the galaxy approved or not. Captain Ryan Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation and looked out at his crew. 6 months had passed since the battle at Aquatilis, and everything had changed. His ship was twice the size of the old Defender, built with technology shared by Earth's new alien allies. The crew was the most diverse group he had ever commanded. Lieutenant Commander Vrak, the Krillian who had helped Beth Turner capture the Dominator, served as his tactical officer. Dr. Coral Deepthought, a Zilani scientist, worked alongside Dr. Amy Foster in the science department. And Sergeant Major Treewhisper, one of the Freed Botanical Collective members, led his security team. Captain, called Lieutenant Maria Santos, still his communications officer after all these months, were receiving a distress signal. Ryan smiled. Those words had started humanity's greatest adventure, and they were still the most important words in the galaxy. Put it on screen, Lieutenant. The main viewer showed a blue-green world surrounded by dark ships. The attacking vessels were sleek and predatory, nothing like the bulky Vortac designs they had fought before. Captain, Vrak reported, I recognize those ships. They belong to the Crimson Syndicate, a group of pirates and slavers who moved in after the Vortac Empire collapsed. Dr. Foster looked up from her science station. I'm reading massive population centers on the planet. At least 50 million people down there. What about their defenses? Ryan asked. Minimal, sir. This appears to be a peaceful agricultural world. They're completely helpless against the Syndicate fleet. Ryan didn't hesitate. All hands, battle stations. Lieutenant Santos, hail the attacking ships. The face that appeared on screen was humanoid but covered in red scales. The creature's yellow eyes showed only cruelty and greed. Unknown vessel, the alien said, you are interfering with a legal salvage operation. Withdraw immediately. This is Captain Cross of the Earth Vessel Liberation. There's nothing legal about attacking innocent people. Withdraw your forces now. The alien leader laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. Earth? I've heard of you. You're the species that destroyed the Vortac fleet. Impressive, but we are not the Vortac. We are faster, smarter, and more dangerous. Then you're about to learn why that doesn't matter, Ryan replied. All ships, commence attack. The Liberation wasn't alone. 3 other Earth ships and 5 vessels crewed by freed aliens moved in formation around her. It was a small fleet, but Ryan had learned that courage mattered more than numbers. The battle that followed proved his point. The Crimson Syndicate ships were fast and well-armed, but they fought like pirates, not soldiers. Each ship tried to save itself instead of working together. The joint human-alien fleet moved like a single organism. Earth ships used their speed to confuse the enemy while the alien vessels targeted weak points with surgical precision. Within an hour, the Syndicate fleet was retreating, leaving behind 3 captured ships and a very angry pirate leader. Captain, Vrak reported, the planet is sending messages of gratitude. They're calling us heroes. Ryan felt the familiar weight of responsibility. Every rescue mission made Earth and its allies more famous throughout the galaxy. With fame came both opportunity and danger. Lieutenant Santos, send a reply. Tell them they're safe now, and ask if they need any assistance rebuilding. As the Liberation took the captured pirate ships in tow, Ryan received a communication from Earth. Admiral Hayes appeared on screen, looking tired but satisfied. Captain Cross, congratulations on another successful mission. How many does that make? 15 in 6 months, Admiral. We've freed over 100,000 people and captured 57 pirate and slaver ships. Excellent work. Now I have some news from the Confederation. Ryan straightened in his chair. The Galactic Confederation had voted to accept Earth as a provisional member after Ambassador Rodriguez's testimony. But provisional membership came with restrictions and constant scrutiny. "What's the news, Admiral?" "Chancellor Mindweaver has officially upgraded our status to full membership. Ambassador Rodriguez says the Confederation is impressed with our measured and effective response to galactic instability." The bridge crew cheered. Full membership meant access to advanced technology, trade agreements with hundreds of worlds, and most importantly, official authority to hunt down criminals throughout Confederation space. "There's more," Admiral Hayes continued. "The Confederation wants Earth to establish a galactic rescue service. They're offering to fund the construction of 20 new ships specifically designed for rescue and peacekeeping missions." Ryan felt a surge of pride. In less than a year, humanity had gone from an unknown species to one of the galaxy's most trusted peacekeepers. But his moment of celebration was interrupted by another signal. Dr. Kate Morrison appeared on a secondary screen, calling from her new monitoring station in Earth orbit. "Captain Cross, I'm picking up another distress call. This one is from the Outer Rim, about 2 weeks away at maximum speed." Ryan looked at the data Kate was sending. A species called the Ethereal Collective was under attack by something called the Shadow Fleet. The images were fuzzy, but the desperation in the alien voices was clear. "Admiral," Ryan said, "permission to respond to this new crisis?" "Permission granted, Captain." "But Ryan?" "Yes, ma'am. Be careful out there. Every time we help someone, we make new enemies as well as new friends." As the communication ended, Ryan turned to his diverse crew. Humans, Zilani, Krillians, and beings from a dozen other worlds worked together as if they had been shipmates for years. "All right, people," he announced, "we have a new mission. The Ethereal Collective needs our help, and we're going to give it to them." Dr. Foster smiled from her science station. "Captain, do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't answered that first distress call?" Ryan thought about it for a moment. "I wonder about a lot of things, Doctor. But I don't regret our choices. The galaxy is a better place because we decided to help." Vrak spoke up from his tactical station. "Captain, my people have a saying, the strongest tree is the one that shelters others from the storm. Earth has become that tree for many species. And will keep being that tree," Ryan replied. "As long as there are people in trouble, there will be humans ready to help them." As the Liberation and her escort ships headed toward their new mission, Ryan stood at the bridge window and looked out at the stars. Each point of light was a sun, and many of those suns warmed worlds where people lived and loved and hoped for a better future. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were part of something incredible, a galactic community dedicated to protecting the innocent and stopping those who would harm them. The message from Aquatilis hadn't been meant for Earth, but humans had answered it anyway. In doing so, they had discovered their true purpose among the stars, to be the ones who answered when others called for help. President Marcus Webb had been right when he authorized that first rescue mission. America, and humanity, had never stood by while innocent people were murdered. They wouldn't start now, even if those people lived on distant worlds under alien suns. Ryan's communication console chimed with another incoming signal. He smiled as he recognized the sender, High Counselor Finn Wavecrest, calling from the beautiful oceans of Aquatilis. "Captain Cross," Finn's translated voice said, "the children of my world are asking about their human friends again. They want to know if you're still protecting people among the stars." "Tell them yes," Ryan replied. "Tell them that as long as there are children who need protection, there will be humans ready to provide it." As the call ended, Ryan looked at his crew, beings from across the galaxy united by a common purpose. The message that had started everything hadn't been meant for them, but they had answered it anyway. And they would keep answering, no matter how far the call came from or how dangerous the mission might be. Because that's what humans did, they helped. And the galaxy was learning that when humans promised to help, they kept their word.